Between 1965 and 1970, the United States Air Force (USAF) settled on Easter Island, radically changing the way of life of the Rapa Nui. As they became acquainted with the customs of the consumer societies of the developed world, in April 1967 land Chile flights began to land and the island began to be oriented towards cultural tourism. Since then, the main concerns for the natives were to strengthen production and marketing cooperatives, which received state support, and to recover their communal lands. Following the 1973 Chilean coup d'état that brought Augusto Pinochet to power, Easter Island was placed under martial law. Tourism slowed down and private property was restored. During his time in power, Pinochet visited Easter Island on 3 occasions. The military built a number of new military facilities and a new city hall. On January 24, 1975, television arrived on the island, with the inauguration of a station of Television Nacional de Chile, which broadcast programming on a delayed basis until 1996. When live satellite transmissions to the island began. In 1976 the Isla de Pascua province was created with Arndt Aronson Pettersson appointed as the first governor between 1976 and 1979. Between 1984 and 1990 the administration of Governor Sergio Rapu Hauer stands out and since then all the governors have been Rapa Nui. In 1979, Decree Law No. 2885 was enacted to grant individual land titles to regular holders. On April 1, 1986, Law No. 18502 is enacted, which establishes the special fuel subsidy in Easter Island, stating that it may not exceed in each product 3.5 monthly tax units per cubic meter, whose value may be paid directly or through the imputation of the respective amount to the payment of certain taxes, as a result of an agreement in 1985 between Chile and the United States. The runway at Mataveri International Airport was extended by 423 meters, 1,388 feet, reaching 3,353 meters, 11,001 feet, and was reopened in 1987. Pinochet is reported to have refused to attend the opening ceremony in protest against pressures from the United States to address human rights cases. Fishers of Rapa Nui have shown their concern of illegal fishing on the island. Since the year 2000 we started to lose tuna, which is the basis of the fishing on the island. So then we began to take the fish from the shore to feed our families. But in less than 2 years we depleted all of it, Pakarati said. 60, on 30 July 2007. A constitutional reform gave Easter Island and the Juan Fernández Islands, also known as Robinson Crusoe Island, the status of special territories of Chile. Pending the enactment of a special charter, the island continues to be governed as a province of the V region of Valparaiso. Species of fish were collected in Easter Island for 1 month in different habitats including shallow lava pools and deep waters. Within these habitats, Two holotypes and paratypes, Antennarius randalli and Antennarius moai, were discovered. These are considered frog fish because of their characteristics: 12 dorsal rays. Last 2 or 3 branched. Bony part of first dorsal spine slightly shorter than second dorsal spine. Body without bold zebra-like markings. Caudal peduncle short, but distinct. Last pelvic ray divided. Pectoral rays 11 or 12. In 2018. The government decided to limit the stay period for tourists from 90 to 30 days because of social and environmental issues faced by the island to preserve its historical importance. A tsunami warning was declared for Easter Island after the 2022 Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai eruption and tsunami. Easter Island was closed to tourists from March 17, 2020 until August 4, 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Then in early October 2022, just 2 months after the island was reopened to tourists, a forest fire burned nearly 148 acres, 60 hectares, of the island, causing irreparable damage to some of the moai. Arson is suspected. Starting in August 2010. Members of the indigenous Hatorangi clan occupied the Hangaroa eco-village and spa. The occupiers alleged that the hotel was bought from the Pinochet government in violation of a Chilean agreement with the indigenous Rapa Nui. In the 1990s, the occupiers say their ancestors had been cheated into giving up the land. According to a BBC report, on 3 December 2010, at least 25 people were injured when Chilean police using pellet guns attempted to evict from these buildings a group of Rapa Nui who had claimed that the land the buildings stood on had been illegally taken from their ancestors. In 2020 the conflict was settled. The property rights were transferred to the Hatorangi clan while the owners retained the exploitation of the hotel for 15 years. In January 2011, the UN Special Rapporteur on Indigenous People, James Anaya, expressed concern about the treatment of the indigenous Rapa Nui by the Chilean government, urging Chile to make every effort to conduct a dialogue in good faith with representatives of the Rapa Nui people to solve as soon as possible the real underlying problems that explain the current situation. The incident ended in February 2011, when up to 50 armed police broke into the hotel to remove the final 5 occupiers. They were arrested by the government, and no injuries were reported. Easter Island is one of the world's most isolated inhabited islands. Its closest inhabited neighbor is Pitcairn Island, 1,931 kilometers, 1,200 miles, to the west, with approximately 50 inhabitants. The nearest continental point lies in central Chile near Concepcion, at 3,512 kilometers, 2,182 miles. Easter Island's latitude is similar to that of Caldera, Chile, and it lies 3,510 kilometers, 2,180 miles, west of continental Chile at its nearest point, between Lota and Lebu in the Biobío region. Isla Salas y Gómez, 415 kilometers, 258 miles, to the east, is closer but is uninhabited. The Tristan da Cunha archipelago in the southern Atlantic competes for the title of the most remote island. Lying 2,430 kilometers, 1,510 miles, from St. Helena Island and 2,816 kilometers, 1,750 miles, from the South African coast. The island is about 24.6 kilometers, 15.3 miles, long by 12.3 kilometers, 7.6 miles, at its widest point. Its overall shape is triangular. It has an area of 163.6 kilometers to 63.2 square miles, and a maximum elevation of 507 meters, 1,663 feet, above mean sea level. There are 3 Rano freshwater crater lakes at Rano Kau, Rano Raraku and Rano Arroy, near the summit of Teravaka, but no permanent streams or rivers. Easter Island is a volcanic island, consisting mainly of 3 extinct coalesced volcanoes. Teravaka, altitude 507 meters, forms the bulk of the island, while 2 other volcanoes, Poike and Rano Kau, form the eastern and southern headlands and give the island its roughly triangular shape. Lesser cones and other volcanic features include the crater Rano Raraku, the cinder cone Puna Pau and many volcanic caves including lava tubes. Poike used to be a separate island until volcanic material from Teravaka united it to the larger whole. The island is dominated by Hawaiite and basalt flows which are rich in iron and show affinity with igneous rocks found in the Galapagos Islands, Easter Island and surrounding islets, such as Motu Nui and Motu Iti, form the summit of a large volcanic mountain rising over 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet, from the seabed. The mountain is part of the Salas y Gomez Ridge, a mostly submarine mountain range with dozens of seamounts, formed by the Easter hotspot. The range begins with Pukau and next Moai, 2 seamounts to the west of Easter Island, and extends 2,700 kilometers, 1,700 miles, east to the Nazca Ridge. The ridge was formed by the Nazca Plate moving over the Easter hotspot, located about 350 kilometers, 220 miles, east of the East Pacific Rise. Easter Island lies within the Nazca Plate, bordering the Easter Microplate. The Nazca Pacific relative plate movement due to the seafloor spreading amounts to about 150 mm, 5.9 in, per year. This movement over the Easter hotspot has resulted in the Easter Seamount chain, which merges into the Nazca Ridge further to the east. Easter Island and Isla Salas y Gomez are surface representations of that chain. The chain has progressively younger ages to the west. The current hotspot location is speculated to be west of Easter Island, amidst the Ahu, Umu and Tupa submarine volcanic fields and the Pukau and Moai seamounts. Easter Island lies atop the Rano Kau Ridge, and consists of 3 shield volcanoes with parallel geologic histories. Poike and Rano Kau exist on the east and south slopes of Theravaka, respectively. Rano Kau developed between 0.78 and 0.46 Ma from tholiitic to alkalite basalts. This volcano possesses a clearly defined summit caldera. Benmoitic lavas extruded about the rim from 0.35 to 0.34 Ma. Finally, between 0.24 and 0.11 Ma, a 6.5 kilometers (4.0 miles) fissure developed along a NESW trend, forming monogenetic vents and rheolitic intrusions. These include the cryptodomylites of Motu Nui and Motu Iti, the islet of Motu Kau Kau, the sheet intrusion of T Kari Kari, the perlitic obsidian T Manavi Dome and the Monga Orito Dome. Poike formed from tholiitic to alkali basalts from 0.78 to 0.41 Ma. Its summit collapsed into a caldera which was subsequently filled by the Puakatiki lava cone. Pahoehoe flows at 0.36 Ma. Finally, the trachytic lava domes of Monga Via Hava, Monga Titi, and Monga Pare formed along a NESW trending fissure.